Good afternoon. I'd like to bring the regular afternoon meeting of Township of Langley Council to order. And the first item is the adoption and receipt of the agenda items. And I would ask that we remove E1, and that will be put into the evening meeting under D3. So the delegation will be coming for the evening meeting. So with that adjustment, I'd ask for a motion. Councillor Davis, second by Councillor Arneson. All those in favor? Opposed and carried. Move on to adoption of the minutes, the regular afternoon council meeting of October 23rd. Can I have a motion, please? Moved by Councillor Fox, second by Councillor Davis. Any errors or omissions? All those in favor? Opposed, carried. And a motion to resolve in special close for items on the agenda and on table. Councillor Whitmarsh, second by Councillor Sparrow and Councillor Richter.
I'd like to add an intergovernmental and a personnel.
Intergov. Personnel. Okay. Okay, with that, all those in favor? Opposed, carried. So now we go to the special closed. Being the regular afternoon meeting of the Township of Langley Council, and the agenda was adjusted. There'll be no delegation at the afternoon meeting, but it'll be in the evening meeting. That's E1. So we'll start with presentations, and we have the Fraser Valley Regional Library here in force, it looks like, and certainly ask them to come forward. And now it says Heather Scholar. Is that how you pronounce it?
They closed all the public libraries.
Just. I got Heather. I hope I pronounced this correct. Is it Scholar? Schooler. Okay. Heather Schooler, Director of Customer Experience, and Nancy Garmrich, Director of Finance, and I'll be providing us with the presentation. Thank you. Welcome here. I'll just get your mic on.
So we're very pleased to be here. My name's Nancy Garmrich. I'm the Director of Finance, and I'll be co-presenting with Heather Schooler. She's our Director of Customer Experience. And we also have Patrick Kincaid. He's the Community Librarian at Walnut Grove. And Dr. Sawan Rondawa, he is the Community Librarian right here at Muriel Arneson. And we have David Thiessen, and he is your Library Manager, so I'm sure you've met him before. So in terms of the agenda, I'm going to very quickly go through the 2018 budget because I know that's the boring stuff. And then we're going to talk about the exciting stuff, which is your library services. And we're going to do that through looking through the lens of our just recently approved corporate strategic plan. We're very excited about this, and you should all have a copy before you. There's 5 different themes in here and a number of different initiatives. So Heather will walk through that with you, and that's the exciting stuff. So the 2018 budget, overall we have 15 members, different municipal members at Fraser Valley Regional Library. The actual rate increase varies because we have a somewhat complex funding formula. Overall, it's just below 2.5%. The average across all members, the Township of Langley this year is slightly higher at 2.95%, and that's just simply because of the allocation bases, one of the most significant ones being population. So if you grow faster than the other members, you'll get more of the piece of the pie, and that pretty much explains why you're at the 2.95 this year instead of the overall average of 2.49. Primary drivers are our staff salary and benefits. We just concluded and now have entered into a 5-year union contract, actually starting in 2006, so we have those numbers. Incremental, so we have 2% is kind of driving our base budget, and then about 0.5% is a time-limited 0.5% additional increase for IT capital funding, which is very important being a library with 25 different library physical locations. And basic inflation somewhere between 0 and 2% across the other expenses. This is just an overview of, these are 2015 total costs. 2016 just came out and I didn't get a chance to update this slide, but this lists all of the public libraries in British Columbia serving populations of greater than 15,000. We're the yellow highlighted line. So we're at about $33 a head based on the population that we serve, which is just over 700,000. We're the largest public library in BC, and you can see I've got some pretty colors up there. The green ones are what we refer to as our peers, so those are libraries serving greater than 100,000. So you can see Surrey is a little bit lower than us in this year at about $20 a head, and all of the other ones are more costly. So we would have closer to similar levels of services. A lot of the smaller libraries will not have the same level of services. We have almost 1 million books in our collection, which are shared across the region. They would have a much, much smaller collection. The green ones that I've highlighted are what we refer to as urban libraries. So they tend to sometimes be a little bit, or you'd expect them to be a little bit more expensive than other municipalities with similar populations. So overall, I think we're fairly cost effective. I kind of look at the end line. I should have mentioned that at first, and that's the total government cost per capita, so cost for the population. And then the others are just our various different cost centers. Very quickly, our revenues, we get most of our revenues from our members, about 91%, about 6% from a provincial grant, and then the rest are our fees and fines, so very nominal. In terms of expenses, about 70% are our salary and benefits for our staff, as you would expect. The next largest area is our library materials, so our books, e-books, all of that kind of stuff. The next largest piece is our IT area, as you'd expect, and HR. So that was all I was going to say about the budget. I'm going to hand it over to Heather Skula, who talked to you about the exciting stuff. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And as Nancy said, I'm going to be providing a snapshot, as you can see, of the wonderful services and resources that your township library are doing every single day, providing to your residents, increasing that quality of life. It could be something like our fabulous Diwali program that just happened, where over 500 people were in attendance. It could be our amazing early literacy programs that we have, our new and exciting non-traditional collections, which I'm going to be telling you a little bit more about today, and wonderful online resources that can be accessed anywhere, anytime. So, underpinning our new strategic plan, which you can see is called Opening Minds and Enabling Dreams. We're very proud of this new mission, and we feel that it really reflects the future of the township libraries and all of Fraser Valley Regional Library. But there's great science behind what we did. We did almost 2 years of public consultation, staff consultation, board consultation, and also being very aware of the 21st century literacies that we have, and they are reading, comprehension, creativity, critical thinking, coding and robotics, and technology skills. Recently, major corporations were asked what are the 2 skills that they would do to hire their next CEO, and they said creativity and critical thinking. And these are the things that are behind the programs and services that we're going to be putting forth over the next 5 years. We all know, not a pretty picture, but we think there's huge opportunities here. There's economic disruption ahead. We know there's 15 million new jobs that are very exciting. They're going to be created from automation over the next 10 years. But at the same time, robotics are going to eliminate about 25 million jobs over the same period. So we're very positive about the future and the exciting things that the township libraries can do to really help your community. And we're developing programs to educate and empower our customers. So the exciting consultation resulted in 5 strategic plan themes that we will be delivering on every single year over the next 5 years. And the first theme is inspiration. Our second is welcoming place. Our third is partnerships. Our fourth is engaging staff. And our last one, love that title, know us and love us. And we'll get to that shortly. So inspiration is a very important theme for the future, for a successful community. Our staff, combined with our technologies and resources, encourage strong economic, creative, and social growth in our communities, families, and individuals. There are 3 areas of our economy that we know from hard facts are going to continue to grow in the future. And those areas are social, creative, and technology. And this is a big focus for our inspiration theme. And our inspiration initiatives that we are going to be focusing on in 2018 are a feasibility study for a mobile makerspace creativity lab. Fraser Valley feels very strongly that we want to bring experiences to each of the township libraries, each of our libraries in Fraser Valley. And so we want them to be in their own community and have access to amazing things that will help them in their future. And we're going to be identifying and exploring non-traditional library collections, such as our ukuleles or the lending of our robots that have been phenomenally successful and are helping people with, 21st century coding skills. And we're going to also support residents to create and launch and promote their own ebooks. Self-publishing is a very big area, and there are many local township authors that we would like to help and support to get their own ebooks produced. So this will be a very exciting initiative for 2018. And as I said earlier, our programs don't just happen. They are designed with a very important purpose. Education, exploration, technology skills, creativity, and something that I think many of you would have heard, but I want to really focus on is STEAM: science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. This is a very important 21st century theme that is going to permeate our entire strategic plan. And I'd like to introduce you, I'm very happy about this, our FVRL playground. So each of your township libraries are going to be exposed to amazing STEAM initiatives. And I'll just, they're on your screen there. Ukuleles, extremely important for musical literacy, reducing social isolation in the township. Green screens are at every single one of your libraries right now. The robots are available to each of your residents at every single library. Huge waiting lists. We're ordering more every single day, over 700 people waiting at the moment. Makey-makeys, connectivity for the future. Kiva planks, I'll be showing you pictures. We recently had a program at Brookswood with babies and Kiva planks, engineering for all ages, and virtual reality, and I'll be telling you more about that. So ukuleles, you may or may not have heard, they have just flown off our shelves, reducing social isolation, bringing people together, increasing music literacy. It's been a phenomenally successful program for the library, and it speaks to our non-traditional collections. Kiva planks and Lego are bringing engineering skills to our youngest and our oldest, so everybody is enjoying these. And part of the playground experience, as you can see, those are the little Kiva planks that I was telling you about. They're little maple blocks, and there's even world competitions to build these things. And adults, it's from the preschooler to the architect within each of you. It's an amazing way to expose us to engineering, important engineering technology of the future. And our little robot, yes, our Sphero Spark Plus has totally captivated all of our communities. It is flying off the shelf, and it is teaching the robotics and coding that is so critical for everyone, for adults, children, teens, everybody. Also, changing the perception of the public library is a very important part of our new strategic plan. And when we started lending our Sphero robots, we quickly went to 600, now over 700 holds. We had a CBC article. Our CEO was on the radio and on CBC TV. And we say we're the first, library in Canada to lend robots. We know we are, but we know there's people desperately out there trying to catch up to us. So as I speak today, maybe someone else is lending. And makey-makey, let's take a banana, let's take an inanimate object, and let's look at connectivity. This is another amazing way. Each of our libraries in the township will be equipped with a makey-makey, and we'll be starting programs in that area. Green screens, every single one has a green screen. You're going to be able to experience this very amazing technology for yourself in the libraries without going anywhere else. And virtual reality. In 2018, coming to all the township libraries will be virtual reality. And you might say, What does virtual reality have to do with libraries? This is a very powerful tool of the future. Do you know that hospices are now using virtual reality to help people at an end-of-life situation actually start to think about different experiences and to leave their beds and all of a sudden be floating in an ocean or doing things? It's a very powerful experience to get you from your present state into another state, and we are totally sold out this year, and coming into the new year, you'll have all this in the township. Welcoming place is our second theme, so we're leaving inspiration, and we're talking about making that incredible welcoming space that helps people enjoy the library when they enter. And we are going to be looking at both the online and the in-person experience for the welcoming place. One of our big initiatives in Welcoming Place is to create a digital library card and evaluate the online user experience. And this is because people now, as you know in council, that people want to be in person, but they also want to connect with you online. And we have many online resources that are phenomenal that we want our users to experience, but we want to provide them with the opportunity to get their card at home without having to come to the library. The welcoming place is equal to the customer experience. If we're not going to have a great customer experience, we're not going to have a welcoming place. So right up the triangle from customer service to a full experience is our goal with Welcoming Place. We're going to have places to relax and read, but we're going to really try to work on our multi-generational experience within the library so that small, intimate gatherings can happen and our large ones can too at all of our libraries. And flexible space, as we talked about our Diwali program, we need to be able to push all the furniture aside and welcome 500 people to an event. And we need to be able to let children have programs too. So flexibility is key for the future. And the online mobile experience is where it's at. We need to have that online mobile experience for everyone. Partnerships are theme number 3. In today's world, we can't do it alone. We need to maximize our ability to achieve our goals by partnering with other agencies with similar values that we can bring success to them and they can bring success to us. So that this is a very important theme for us to build that partnership infrastructure as we move forward. And engaging staff. We know that our amazing Township Library staff are the key to the success of everything that we do. And we want to make sure that in our 21st century technologies and different needs and evolving needs of our customers, that our staff have that confidence and expertise to deliver on our strategic goals. And so evaluating internal communications, ensuring that staff get the information when and where they need it, and providing a supportive staff so staff can do their best work and serve the residents of the township the best they can. And finally, just checking if you're seeing this wording is not correct. If you look on page 31, the Know Us, Love Us theme, I'm going to read it out to you. We just actually got excited with our staff and put it in twice. The Know Us, Love Us theme is that we are known and celebrated for providing a broad and dynamic range of services. Our customers appreciate the friendly and personalized Fraser Valley Regional Library experience, and those who know us, love us. Because if we're not known, we can't be loved, and we know we have so much for the residents that we really, really need to increase our awareness campaign so that people understand what we have and what's there for them. What we've been doing is creating some very high quality videos that we're using in all of our promotion, and we use it in our press releases, and helping people understand what the library could provide for them because they don't know what they don't know. So looking back at all of the things that are going to be happening, these are our themes that are going to guide us over the next 5 years. And what I'd like to do is show you a video of how an online user uses the public library. So people know about the in-library experience, but let's take a peek at what it looks like to be an online user. So this is a little video, and I'm fingers crossed, because we're so technologically advanced in the 21st century that when I click this, you're going to have a wonderful online experience with me. Please, yes.
Are you coming for lunch?
Tu viens déjeuner?
Gardez la monnaie.
Gardez la monnaie. Gardez la monnaie. Gardez la monnaie.
Oui, moi je vais prendre le moule frites marinière, s'il vous plaît. À votre santé.
Gardez la monnaie.
So you can learn a language in your kitchen. You don't even need to be at the library. With our mobile apps and our ability to get to all of our databases, you can be in your kitchen and have that full library experience. And this is an audience we really want to embrace in 2018 and beyond, because this is the way that people are using their lives. So our in-library experience is super important, but so is that online experience, that rich online experience. I'd like to also share with you, if I have time, I'm not being flashed at yet. I'd like to share with you, I'd like to have a ukulele user tell you what it's like to be part of our ukulele jam programs and what that's done for her. So I'd like to share this with you.
Man, it keeps your brain in motion because you've got to learn the words, learn the songs, keep the rhythm, and your brain is in use all the time. We've got 5 minutes more, so what do we finish up with? As I lay sleeping. I think everybody needs to have access to music, because people from all different cultures, all different ages, have different music abilities, and they need to be fostered, and we need more ukulele players in this world to make this world a better place.
And that's Lucille, one of our dedicated ukulele jam members, but we have many just like her. And the reducing social isolation is a very big part of our plan. And I'd like to leave you with our little robot, Sphero. So Sphero is a delight, and from adults to preschoolers, people are learning new coding and robotics in a fun and informal and non-threatening way from the library, either at a program or by borrowing one of our little Spheros to take home. Oh, and that's Lucille. She keeps coming back. We'll just knock her off for a minute there. Okay, give me a moment. Spark is coming. I hope he's coming. Yes. Okay.
Sphero Spark Plus is
This is your robot
ball. Sphero is the company that also made Star Wars' BB-8. So customers can borrow the Sphero Spark from their local library. You can use the app on your tablet or your phone, and you can just drive it around and make it do things, make noises, you can program it. Fraser Valley Regional Library knows that technology and coding are important to the customers, and we want our customers to have the opportunity to experience those technologies that are a part of their lives now and in the future, and to be part of the creative economy. Go, 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 go! Go, 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 go!
So to sum up, Opening Minds and Enabling Dreams is more than just the title of our new strategic plan. We really hope to really enhance people's lives, the quality of life, and you will see in your township libraries, even today, the evidence of where we're going to have that 21st century experience. So we just finished in the township a highly successful engineering maker fair with 8 sessions, totally booked. So everything we're doing is in our virtual reality sessions, as I said, have been totally booked. We know that we're helping people embrace the future without fear and with a lot of fun. So I thank you very much for allowing us to share our themes and the exciting areas that we hope to be able to expose all of the residents in the township to. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I do have a question
Okay.
from a member of council who you probably are very familiar with. Councillor Arneson.
Yeah, the mayor has outed me. For those of you who might not know, I'm the council representative for the FERL. I'm just so pleased that you were able to come today and to share all these wonderful, innovative new ideas and the direction in which the libraries are going. I could probably take a lot of time that nobody would like me to take to commend you on the direction. I certainly know, as somebody as part of the board, that we spent a lot of time putting this strategic plan together, and like you said, all of that engagement. And I really think it's very apparent with all of the innovative things that you've put together. And so I think it's a very exciting time. And if I can just date myself by saying, I grew up in the era of the very quiet library, the bricks and mortar with a little pencil and the card that you filled out, etc. So we have to kind of wrap our minds around where we're going, and the evolution of all these things is so fast. And I just think it's just very exciting what you're doing. And I just really appreciate your coming today. So thank you.
Thank you very, very much.
And Councillor Richter.
Yeah, I'm really intrigued with that language program. What a wonderful idea that is.
I'm so excited. I've got you excited.
Well, I could have used it this summer when I went to Russia. But I'm just wondering, how many different languages can you learn to speak with that program?
There are quite a few. I don't know if any of my resource staff behind me. How many?
5. No. The total number of available languages.
There's hundreds in there, and they're quite, they're not sometimes the obscure ones you wouldn't think of, but they're full tutorials that are on there. So this is a resource that most people wouldn't know, and you can see why we want to celebrate the amazing resources. We also have lynda.com, and I don't know if that resonates with any of you, but if you want to learn anything, these are professional. If you have staff that want to learn Excel or really brush up on their Word, just go to our website and just go to lynda.com. Otherwise, you're paying for that subscription. So we have so many incredible things we want to celebrate this year. So thank you for.
And is there any cost for the?
All you need is that FVRL library card, which is free.
And do you still have like the 9,000 number cards?
Oh, yes.
Are you going to simplify that or shorten it at all?
Oh, yes. As Nancy said, there are many ways you can create a username so that each time you don't have to remember that big, long number. Okay. So Nancy's very excited here. She's telling me to tell more. Go for it, Nancy.
I was just going to say, I'm from finance, so I'm the dummy when it comes to the library. So they have this great service. It's called Book a Librarian. So if you want to learn how to use Mango languages or create the short name to go with your library card, or find something on lynda.com, or access some of the ebooks, whatever it is, you book this with the librarian. You get half an hour, and they show you how to use your devices.
Everything.
I've sent my 9 and 11-year-old in there twice now.
Wow.
Because I'm the dummy, so I think they should learn from an expert. And they come back and they're just like so amazed. I have one that is doing the Mango languages for French.
Wow.
There you go.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I'm really intrigued with that one. Now, you mentioned the library budget. So Township is growing faster than other areas. So our budget this year is going up 2.95%?
Yes. And we compose about 3% plus or minus of your budget. So the impact on your taxpayers would be 2.95% times 3%. So the actual dollar impact, percentage impact coming to the other side is quite nominal.
Okay.
If that helps.
And are we getting any new facilities for the increase this year, or just more stuff in the existing facilities?
More stuff in the existing facilities.
Okay. Well, that's great. Well, thank you very
We'll
much.
aim to wow you.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for your presentation. And I was intrigued on the budget. It's the dollars per head, I think you called it. And we're kind of at the lower end. I just wonder what kind of books West Vancouver is buying. That's what I want to know. $95 per resident.
There's quite a vast difference. Some of them do have different services, obviously,
Right.
and to really get a better feel, you have to look, obviously, at the service level as well as the cost. I do know that certainly our service level, compared to any of them, is right up the top. I mean, we have the floating collection. So normally you just go, you put books on hold. If you don't know how to do that, you should learn. It's also a wonderful thing. And they normally come within a couple of days. So I have my kids, they go on, they get all the books that they want, and within a couple days. And that's because, and almost all the books that they want, because we have almost 1 million books in the collection. Whereas, of course, at the smaller libraries, you won't have
They
that.
just don't have that.
So
Yeah.
we give you a lot, good value.
That's great. Thank you. I think Mr. Backer will be checking out 9 robots.
Yes.
And looking for.
And we just ordered 84
Okay,
more, so
good.
get your name on now for Christmas. It'll be good.
9 robots along here. Perfect. That's
Okay,
the future.
thank you very much.
Is that
Oh,
for the
okay.
council along? Okay. Thank you very much for your
Thank
presentation.
you.
Very enjoyable. Yeah. Okay, and the next presentation is Social Sustainable Strategy from staff. I believe Mr. Patrick Ward will be presenting that, and it's on the terms of reference. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. The purpose of my presentation this afternoon is to present to Council the terms of reference for the preparation of a social sustainability strategy for the Township of Langley. There's 2 components to my presentation. Firstly, I'll be providing a little bit of background information, and then secondly, I'll just provide the highlights of the terms of reference. Before proceeding, though, I'm going to attempt to describe what is meant by social sustainability. Its focus is people and those issues that contribute to our well-being and our quality of life. Things like housing, access to food, public safety, and lifelong learning. It involves meeting basic human needs and providing opportunities for enhancing both human and community capacity. And as we move forward with the preparation of a social sustainability strategy, we will further define and explore what exactly is meant by social sustainability in the context of the Township of Langley. In terms of background and the genesis of this strategy, in 2008, Council adopted the Sustainability Charter, which provides a number of goals and objectives related to social sustainability. This strategy would help build upon that charter by providing strategies and specific actions to begin to implement those goals and objectives. In 2016, Council adopted a new official community plan. The new OCP states that Council should consider the creation of a social sustainability plan in order to consider the social needs of equity, health, and social inclusion. And then finally, more recently, a draft terms of reference for the social sustainability strategy was presented to the Seniors Advisory Committee at its meeting on October 18th, at which time the committee endorsed the project. Turning now to the highlights. The terms of reference indicate that the purpose of the strategy at a very high level is to identify the township's social sustainability's goals and objectives, provide appropriate strategies and actions that would address those goals, and clarify the township's roles and responsibilities on social sustainability matters. And the purpose of the terms of reference, which is included in your agenda package, I should add, is to identify the issues that may be explored as part of the strategy and to outline the process, the deliverables, and the estimated schedule for preparing the strategy. The terms of reference outline 8 guiding principles and assumptions that are intended to guide the preparation of the strategy and ultimately shape the development of the strategy's goals, actions, and implementation. The first is to integrate the 3 elements of sustainability. So while this strategy would be focused specifically on social issues, it could very well be that advancing our social aspirations would also provide an opportunity for advancing our economic and environmental aspirations. The second is to acknowledge our role and responsibilities. The township is one of only a number of partners and players that play a role in addressing social issues. The strategy's actions must recognize the township's limited jurisdiction and funding for the delivery of social services. Where appropriate, the strategy should identify partners to assist with the different actions. The third is to build on our foundation. The township already has a number of social-related plans, such as the age-friendly strategy and the housing action plan. So the strategy should seek to balance acknowledging these existing initiatives while identifying new directions and initiatives that would address social sustainability. The fourth is to be aspirational and realistic. The strategy should be visionary in nature, but should also be realistic through suitable, strategic, and cost-effective actions and implementation timelines. We also must recognize our nature as a community of communities. The township consists of a rural and urban area, and within the urban area, each of our communities is distinct. The strategy is intended to address social sustainability matters in the township as a whole, but it's important to recognize that social issues may be experienced very differently in different communities. The sixth is to increase community capacity. So the process for preparing the strategy and then ultimately the strategies and actions themselves should aim to increase the capacity of the community to address social issues. The seventh is ensure that we can track our progress. So the strategy needs to identify baseline indicators that mean that we can monitor and track our progress over time. And the final guiding principle and assumption is that we need to provide flexibility. Although providing a clear guide for decision-making related to social sustainability, the strategy should recognize that conditions can change, requiring flexibility as implementation proceeds. In terms of the project management, the strategy process would be led by the Long Range Planning Department with assistance from other key township divisions and departments. And then we are also looking for some support from an external consultant for strategic work components, particularly the public engagement process. The consultant is to be determined. The preparation of the strategy would involve the following work: identify and better understand social issues in the Township of Langley, formulate the township's social sustainability vision and goals, develop appropriate strategies and actions to work towards those goals, develop an implementation plan to prioritize the various actions, and then finally, clarify the township's role and responsibility on social issues. This section of the terms of reference also identifies the topics that may be explored as part of the process. Such topics include children, youth, and family, seniors, housing, and accessibility. The development of the strategy would involve a comprehensive public and stakeholder engagement process that integrates the recommendations of the public engagement strategy. The public engagement and the public and stakeholder engagement program would include engagement with three broad groups: the general public and local stakeholders, government agencies and Township of Langley advisory committees, and a social sustainability task force. Engagement opportunities with the general public and local stakeholders may include, but are not necessarily limited to, community dialogues, focus groups, workshops, open houses, and online engagement activities. All of the township's advisory committees and various government agencies would be invited to participate in the process. Finally, a task force will be established to help generate community awareness and provide strategic input at key points in the process. Pursuant to Council's Advisory Committee Establishment Bylaw, the task force would be established by the Seniors Advisory Committee and subject to Council's approval. Although established by the Seniors Advisory Committee, the task force members would need to represent a broad range of stakeholder interests, not just seniors issues. Members may include representatives from local nonprofit associations, community groups, government agencies that engage in social services, research, and/or advocacy. At least one member of the task force would need to be a member of the Seniors Advisory Committee. The preparation of the strategy would consist of 5 phases of work. Phase 1 would begin with Council's consideration and hopefully approval of the terms of reference for the strategy. Phase 1 then would involve raising awareness of the project and establishing the Social Sustainability Task Force. Moving into Phase 2, an expert panel would be convened to discuss the concept of social sustainability, and the purpose of this panel would be to help frame the project and provide initial ideas for the vision and goals by exploring the key elements of social sustainability within a municipal local context. This expert panel discussion would be open to the public. Phase 2 of the work program then involves assembling baseline data and other key information into what we're calling a social profile. The profile would include data on key social indicators, an inventory of social service providers in the Township of Langley, and an overview of existing Township of Langley plans, strategies, and programs that address social issues. Finally, Phase 2 involves public engagement activities to receive input on the current state of social issues in the township. This input, together with the expert panel and the social profile, would provide the foundation for developing the vision and goals and the strategic directions in the next phases of the project. Phase three of the work program involves developing ideas and the vision. The Social Sustainability Task Force would help develop ideas for the vision statement, and then the broader public and stakeholder groups would help develop ideas for the goals, strategic directions through a series of public workshops and some online engagement. Phase 4 of the work program then involves drafting the strategy itself. This work would be based on all of the research, analysis, and public engagement completed in the previous phases, including additional research into best practices. Phase 4 concludes with Council's consideration of a draft strategy, which is anticipated in the spring of 2019. Finally, Phase 5 of the work program involves the preparation of an implementation plan. And the purpose of the implementation plan is to prioritize the actions, identify divisional and departmental responsibilities, and then identify potential resource and funding requirements. The implementation plan is anticipated to be completed in early 2020. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I've got some questions from Council. Councillor Fox.
Yes, and I can say a welcome to Patrick. It's great to have him on board as our social planner, and it's awesome to have him as our liaison for the Seniors Committee. He attended his first meeting last month, and it was exciting to see the work that he's done and his commitment to moving agendas such as this social sustainability strategy forward. So thank you very, very much for that. I don't have any questions of you. I just wanted to say welcome aboard, and it's great to have you with the Seniors Committee and working there. And I noticed you got your backup man up there. That's good always to have a backup when, but it's exciting, and I think you're going to bring some real life and focus and energy to the committee and the work they're doing in the next while. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Arneson.
Yes, thank you. I echo those comments. I just had a couple of comments, and so generally I'm really supportive of this in principle. It's a longer-term vision of what we can do to reach our social objectives. I did have a couple of things. They're probably a little in advance of where we are right now, but things that stood out for me when I was reading the staff report. So I may have missed something, but I think that there was a current list of engagement stakeholders, and I didn't see the First Nations there. So I just, they're part of a community group, I know, but I just wanted to have them included there. The other thing I think that would be really important from my perspective is that some of these initiatives should at least begin by a needs assessment. So to make sure that we're having an opportunity to quantify what should be done going forward after we have a social profile that you're basing this on. Guiding principles, best management practices, I guess similar to the agricultural viability strategy, so that you have short, medium, and longer term goals. I imagine that, and the staff report said that that was what your desire was. And just sort of from my perspective, I was reading into this that the viability, the plan will have to be predicated in the longer term about potential projects that would probably need to have funding in a budget, any budget year. So, and I just like the idea of having this dashboard with identified partnering arrangements, the departments that would be responsible. And I also have to say that I'm really appreciative of the fact that there is an awareness that there is a certain context in which the township has the funding and ability to do certain things, and you pre-identified that within the plan. It's within our means, you know, and within our mandate. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Councillor Richter.
Yes, and an exciting new initiative to be launching out on, and certainly you'll be breaking new ground in many respects, I would suspect. I liked when you were talking about your guiding principles that you do acknowledge that the township does have limited jurisdiction and funding for social problems, because that's not really why we were created, although a lot of things start getting downloaded to us, and that your plan is to look for cost-effective actions. I'm really glad to hear that because, as you're well aware, there's so many social problems out there that could chew up our entire budget as it is right now and then triple that budget, and it still wouldn't be enough to solve them all. But I'm curious, when you're setting up your task force, how are you going to ensure that the task force is balanced and not representative of one particular group or one particular agenda? So let's say, I don't know, homelessness or social or affordable housing, or like, how are you going to make sure it truly is a balanced group?
We will be discussing with the Seniors Advisory Committee, well, subject to Council's approval of the terms of reference, of course, at the next meeting, two particular items. One, not necessarily names of who should compose this task force at this point, but a broader conversation of what the competencies of the task force should be and what sectors need to be represented. And I think the terms of reference provide a broad overview of the different topic areas around social issues that would be explored. And in my mind, it would be wonderful if we could have a member on that task force that represents, for lack of a better term, each of those different topic areas. And then ultimately, as a final check, the task force is a recommendation that the Seniors Advisory Committee would be providing to Council. So that would be Council's opportunity to make any changes if they so saw fit.
Yeah, well, with all due respect to the Seniors Committee, they are a special interest group. They're into seniors issues. And it would seem to me that we've got lots of social problems that span a wide range of ages, not just seniors issues. So in developing action strategies and plans going forward, how are you going to make sure it's representative of the entire community?
Again, so that's something that we would be discussing in detail with the Seniors Advisory Committee, specifically on what that composition needs to look like. And when staff presented the draft terms of reference to the committee on October 18th, we had a productive discussion on this issue as well. There were some members of the Seniors Advisory Committee that initially felt a little bit uncomfortable with this. They didn't feel that they had the mandate in order to do this. But after further dialogue, there's a lot of members on that committee that are dialed into other networks. They represent youth issues. They sit on the board, the Encompass board, just as an example. And I think that staff as well would be able to provide some guidance on which local community agencies we should be seeking representation from on that task force.
Okay, and will you also be putting a call out to the public at large to see if anyone is interested in serving, or alternatively has experience in social planning? I'm sure we've got a very, very talented pool of people that live in this community. I'm sure there's lots of people who could be wonderful resources on this community if they're asked to participate.
That was something that was also discussed initially with the Seniors Advisory Committee, and we would be looking into that item in more detail in November unless Council wanted to provide more specific direction on that. But certainly the committee did talk about the potential need for a broader public advertisement of the task force.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Sure.
I don't mind, because I was part of that discussion. And actually, Mr. Chu was there as well. So when we talked about it in the context of the committee, we didn't talk about it in terms of the specifics. We talked about it in composition to try and get the broadest range of representation in the various different sectors. So the process, and Mr. Ward alluded to this, is something along the lines as and we drew a parallel with the Brookswood group, community engagement group, where we said, okay, we want somebody from the developed area, someone from the undeveloped, someone from in the ALR, someone with environmental background, and Mr. Chu was there in that discussion, and pretty soon it grew to, I think, 17 members. By the time we put all these sort of different parameters and sectors in, and so really, as Mr. Ward alluded to, the first thing to do is, okay, what do we need to cover? And then how are we going to get them? I mean, the Seniors Advisory Committee is only 8 people. It certainly can't do it. But so we have to go to the public sector and deal with inviting that sector to try and respond to each of those areas that we've identified. So it's going to take a little bit of time, but use a similar public engagement evolution that took place with the Brookswood group.
Thank you. Councillor Qualley?
Thank you. Thanks, Patrick. That was a good presentation, and I've been sort of following this along as co-chair for Councillor Fox at Seniors Advisory. And I do want to just say that this has really sort of got some people on the Seniors Advisory Committee excited about sort of the next phase of the committee work in this. And, you know, they were feeling a little bit, I think, at a bit of loose ends with the oh my gosh, it's totally gone. The age-friendly strategy. So they were feeling like that had come to almost to an end, and they've been sort of watching the process sort of evolve. But now that the strategy's complete, they're sort of just watching it unfold, I guess. And so it's good for the Seniors Advisory Committee to have something that they can kind of sink their teeth into again, because they do want to work hard and continue to contribute as a committee. So thank you for your work with that. And I think the Seniors Advisory Committee, to your point earlier, is actually really diverse. There's a lot of people, several people on the committee who aren't seniors, who have a really diverse background. So I think they'll be able to bring some of those social pieces to work. And I think I'd really like to see, you know, in thinking about this and talking to you before this, some of our first responders participating in this, and whether it's fire, police, whatever that's going to look like. But they are such a big part of the social fabric of the community, providing that level of service to some of the more vulnerable people in our community. So I just would like to emphasize the importance of their contribution on this. But you and I have talked about that before. So thank you for this, and thanks for the report. I'm looking forward to watching this evolve, and hopefully I can participate at some level.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, and thank you for the report. Listening to the comments from Council, it's almost like the Seniors Advisory Committee is no longer just the Seniors Advisory Committee, but a Social Issues Advisory Committee, and maybe that's something to consider in the future, is changing the name to reflect really what they're doing. And the people that are on that committee have a vast array of skills and skill sets and experiences, so just something to consider. Thank you. Councillor Fox wants the last word. Councillor Fox.
I don't want the last word.
No.
I want to move a recommendation. I think it's F1.
Yeah, so we'll go to that.
This silly thing is
Thank
F1.
you very much, Mr. Ward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Councillor Fox, you wish to move?
Yeah, I'm
F1?
moving F1.
Okay. Second by Councillor Qualley. I'm just going to clear the queue here. Any discussion on F1? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question. And carries unanimously. There we go. Move on to F2, UBCM Age-Friendly Communities Grant Program. And the motion. Sorry, did I miss? Okay, Councillor Fox moves F2, seconder to F2. Sure. Councillor Arneson. And discussion on F2. Seeing none, I'll call the question. Carries unanimously. And move on to F3, compensation for overpaid property taxes due to assessment errors by British Columbia Assessment. And could I have a motion, Councillor Fox, second by Councillor Whitmarsh. Any discussion on F3? Seeing none, I'll call the question. And it carries unanimously. And move on to F4, Agricultural Land Commission application 100316. This is litter at 1762 64th Street. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Long and seconder, Councillor Whitmarsh. And any discussion on F4? Seeing none, call the question. And it carries with Councillor Richter, Councillor Arneson, Councillor Davis opposed. Move on to F5, this is public art policy. This is a great report on public art, and looks like we don't have a policy. This provides a policy for the township. Councillor Long and seconder, yep. Councillor Qualley. Any discussion, Councillor Richter?
Yeah, I'm a little concerned with the funding formula that's proposed here. And I'm wondering if the City of Langley, who, as I understand it, have a program where they charge a fee per door constructed in the city. And they have successfully, if I'm recalling this correctly, they have successfully already built up a fund of over $1 million that they are now using for the public art installations that they're putting throughout the city. So I kind of like their funding model. And I'm wondering if it's something that we did explore, and if we haven't explored, could we explore it? Because I'm not convinced taking money out of greenways is the right way to fund public art. So perhaps staff can answer that.
Wish to respond to that? Thank you.
Right now, it is part of those neighborhood plans to have designated funds for public art, and I think the accumulation is $1.9 million once those communities grow out, and that has been established by council policy with the establishment of those neighborhood plans. With regard to the city of Langley, although they're building up that per door, they haven't committed that all to public art. In fact, as far as I know, they spend about $5,000 a year on public art. We also have other options that would be available through this policy for council to consider funding projects in some of the more developed neighborhoods. So this policy is reflective of what exists now and provides the option to council to consider other funding options such as community amenity contributions.
Yeah. No, I thought it was pretty creative on their part to, every time you build a door, you got to contribute something for art. I thought that was a very good way to look at things. So now, whereabouts in the policy does it say that council has some flexibility to look at that then?
I think under this section that addresses funding, pardon me, section 456, other funding opportunities will be integrated into policy with council's deliberation and determination of developer contribution formulas supporting community growth. So it's been embedded into this policy that it's up to you to make those determinations in future, for future funding of public art.
Thank you.
Councillor Arneson?
Yes, thank you, Worship. To Mr. Tunamello, thank you very much for this. As you know, because we've talked about this probably in the past, I'm very supportive of this. I've gone to a couple of FCM events where they have an opportunity to do a study tour, and they actually feature a number of the communities that have public art and how appreciated it is. And actually there's a clamoring for it after a while, after people sort of wrap their mind around the fact that they have an opportunity to do that. I do have a couple of questions. So the first one, I believe the report referred to the fact that there would be a public art technical advisory team that would be put into place.
That's correct.
And I just thought that it should have a representative from the arts community on that team. That's just my suggestion. I did also have a query regarding currently what the percentage of the budget is. So if we're taking it from the Greenway amenity charges, is it an actual percentage of that overall budget that we're currently using?
No, each community, it's different because of the space allocations for parks. It's determined through community development as to what dollar value goes toward public art in those neighborhoods.
Okay. I just had another question. I think it referred maybe to transformer boxes, but I wondered if they fell within the purview of our public art policy. Is that something that's considered to be public art?
In fact, it is considered public art.
Okay.
And currently the Langley Centennial Museum works with the Roads Department on that specific project. So, yes, public art.
Okay. And my final question, I guess, when I thought about it, arose from the fact that when I lived in Toronto, there was a bit of a controversy because public art had been installed in a private retail development, at which time it subsequently expanded and wanted to take over that space. So would this kind of, I guess what I'm asking is whether or not if public dollars are invested in art and it goes into a private development, what happens over time if there is some consideration for relocation or, they want to change where it's going to be, etc.?
If a developer comes forward with a public art proposal for situation in a private development, we would work with that developer to create an agreement. And that agreement would cover the issues of also maintenance of that public art, as well as future possibility of it being deaccessioned from the collection.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Councillor Whitmarsh.
Yeah, thank you for this report. It was very helpful report. I just had a quick question. When you in the policy, it discusses long-term and putting money aside for maintenance and conservation of the various public art pieces, and it establishes the number of 10% as an allocation. I'm just wondering how that 10% is sort of arrived at. Is that sort of a standard kind of allocation for maintenance throughout the township, or is this just a normal public art kind of thing? Where does that 10% come from?
That is a standard for municipal public art policy, that 10% being put aside. One has to realize, however, that a public art maintenance reserve would have to be established over a period of time to be able to tap into that. As contributions are made and that 10% of whatever that public art piece is invested in a public art reserve fund, there may be gaps that would be looked at through a public works operating budget to cover those gaps. We already have 60 pieces within the township that are defined as public art, and they fall under the jurisdiction of public works, or our parks.
Right. So when this fund gets established, is it function sort of like an endowment that it just gets put in there and built up, and so then we use the interest to maintain and the art pieces?
That is the hope. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Long.
Thanks, Your Worship. Thank you so much for the report. I didn't realize we had 60 pieces of public art already, and I hope they can be identified on a map or something so that we can start looking at them more. And I'm really happy to see this policy come forward. I know it's been talked about for a number of years, actually. I was wondering if perhaps you might make a round and visit with some of our advisory committees and expand upon the program and explain it to people. I think it'd be good.
I'd be happy to do that.
Maybe you could come to our Heritage Commission.
I'd be happy
December,
to do that.
And we're going to have snacks too. So.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. There's no further questions from Council. Thanks for that report.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're back to F5. I did get a mover and seconder on that, didn't I? Is that correct? I moved it. Yep, I did. Yep. Okay, so any further discussion? Okay, I'll call the question. That carries unanimously. Yeah, so now we move on to correspondence. There's one item of correspondence. Could I have a motion to receive, please? That's Councillor Fox and seconded by Councillor Davis. Discussion on the receipt. Seeing none, I'll call the question on G1. Carries unanimously. Move on to minutes of committees, which there are Council Priorities, Seniors Advisory, Recreation, Culture, Parks, Agriculture Advisory and Economic Enhancement Committee. Can I have a motion to adopt the minutes from all those committees? Councillor Arneson, Councillor Fox seconds. Discussion on that. Seeing none, I'll call the question on H1. I get my finger to work. Carries unanimously. And move on to a recommended motion under H2. If I could have Councillor Fox.
I've got a question I want to ask. Do you want to move first, or
sure? If we can get on, maybe Councillor Richter wishes to move it as your committee. Councillor Richter moves it. Seconder. Is there a seconder? Councillor Sparrow and Councillor Fox.
Yeah. Lobby local MLAs to have the ALC policy L22 rescinded. I couldn't find any reference to exactly what policy L22 rescinded or policy L22 was. So it makes it really difficult to vote on the motion unless I know what I'm voting on. So Can someone enlighten me as to what ALC Policy L22 is?
Mr. Seffi?
Thank you, Your Worship. This is a policy of the Agricultural Land Commission, and it was apparently, I guess, put into effect in 2016 without what we believe would have been due consultation with stakeholders, including local government. And it's to do with what they call events. And subsequent to their adoption of this policy, what they have deemed filming to be is actually an event. In actual fact, the filming industry is concerned with the lack of consultation and the determination that filming is an event. I have a copy of it available, and I can distribute that to Council, Your Worship, during the break.
So I've got this on table here, the working group filming in the ALR. And so is policy L22, we're asking it to be rescinded. Are we only asking about the part that has to deal with filming, or the whole thing? The whole policy, L22, because that includes weddings. It includes a whole number of things which a lot of people were actually quite happy to have as part of L22. Weddings being one. I think Mr. Martin has long lobbied that. So I guess my question is, what are we just asking, one element or the whole thing?
Can I just speak to that, please?
Sure. Councilor Richter.
Okay, first of all, there's the agenda is missing some wordings, some crucial wording in there. And the actual motion that was moved by the AAEEC to Council is number 1, consider lobbying local MLAs. And to answer Councillor Fox's question, I believe what they focused on in their discussions was the importance of being able to do or to have filming as a way to benefit farms that are actively farming, and I think Council's had a delegation or two on those in the past. So I would interpret it, what they mean is that policy L22 is too broad brush. It needs to be more focused because their other recommendation goes into requesting the ALC to include a definition of film and theatrical presentation in the policy instead of like just lumping everything together. They're two very different types. And in their discussions about filming, they raised the idea that this is a difficult issue to deal with because, of course, it's a provincial matter. We can't dictate or decree anything. All we can do is ask for consideration of. And the temporary nature of filming is something that needs to be addressed to meet the needs of Creative BC because the having to wait to get a permit is a problem. So I think what they've attempted to do here with their recommendations to Council is to be flexible enough to acknowledge that this is not a Council problem, but perhaps Council can request that the ALC give consideration to these issues based on the fact that our AAEEC has reviewed the matter and come up with these suggestions. So that first one, it shouldn't say lobby, it says consider lobbying. Council can do that or not. I think if we bring it to the MLA's attention that the policy, maybe we don't want to say rescinded, but definitely needs to be amended to be more flexible to farming in the township. But in any event, it's in front of us for discussion.
So just for some clarity, we could do an amendment to add the word consider, and we could add, instead of L22 rescinded, lobby local MLAs to have the section in ALC, policy L22, in regards to filming in farmland rescinded or amended.
Yeah, that would work.
If that's okay with the mover, and if the rest of council accepts that, then we will just add that as amendment.
So that's number 1, right?
Consider and then just changing rather than the whole thing being rescinded, it appears to me that they're looking at just the one piece of it, and that's to do with filming on the farmland. So I'll have that amended. So that's acceptable, or do we need a motion? Everybody agrees? There's no... Okay, so we'll add that as an amendment. So any other discussion? Councillor Long.
Well, Your Worship, I think this is a pretty critical issue to the township and maybe quite unique to us in some respects. I'm supporting it was unique as everybody else, but we do have a lot of filming activity because of our proximity to Vancouver, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that maybe what the AAEC may be looking for, maybe council can provide is a bit more background, a bit more of a report. Maybe it warrants a report from our staff to get a little bit more in depth, to spell out some of the reasons why we feel there's an issue here, and lend some, more detailed support to this that could be then translated, or maybe a letter could come with the report. I don't want to create a bunch of extra work, but I think it deserves some pretty good attention that's being brought to our attention by the committee, but it may deserve more attention from council than just passing a motion that may not get the results we're looking for. Perhaps staff could give us a more in-depth report on where we're heading with it and make a more comprehensive submission in that respect. I'll just put that out there to you, Your Worship.
But we could refer this to...
No, I think we should refer it to staff to help formulate a report that supports this this initiative and makes us...
Yeah. Mr. Backen has a comment, and then we'll...
Perhaps Mr. Seffi should comment on the previous steps taken, because I believe a couple of reports have been done in that regard, Mr. Seffi.
Yeah, but this is my point exactly, that there is quite a bit of background already there, so we need the whole thing rolled up, I think. But anyway, go ahead.
Steffi, do you have any reports down in this regard in relation to filming the agriculture land reserve?
Your Worship, not reports to council. Certainly staff have been discussing the issues in this policy with the Agricultural Land Commission, in particular to do with enforcement and implementation, because the policy refers to, as an example, the number of events that can be held at a property, maximum of 10 in a year, or parking requirements, the duration of the event. And we are really concerned, as are other local governments, in terms of who is going to be responsible for monitoring and enforcing the Land Commission's requirements. And we've had extensive discussions with the Land Commission in this regard.
Okay, thank you.
So I think there was a motion there. But
so to refer to staff to basically
develop a
take this motion
response to this request.
And develop a response, bring back to council. So that would be a referral motion by Councillor Long, and the seconder, I heard Councillor Richter seconds it. So on the deferral motion, any discussion on that? I will then call the question on deferral. It carries unanimously. Move on to I1. This is CP Community Advisory Panel minutes for receipt. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Davis, second by Councillor Fox. Any discussion on receipt? Okay, it just lit up. I'm going to, okay, Councillor, I'm going to clear the queue because it's left over from the last motion. If you could push your button again, whoever wishes to speak to this. Councillor Davis.
Just an update. On October 5th, we had the CP Community Advisory Panel meeting, and this Railroad Crossing Information System project, which it's going to detect trains. It's going to track the train through the rail corridor. It'll identify the length of the train and predict the time and duration of the intersections blocked for each train. And then it'll activate and give a notice to drivers, maybe which way they should defer themselves, or there may be a better route. And it'll also going to show the direction of the train. And we've already started the design in 2016, but from now till June 18th, they're going to do the construction on the I forget how many. I think there's 5 signs. And come winter in 2018, we'll be able to start using them. And I just wanted to, they had a lot of meetings, and one of the most taunting things that they couldn't get over was the design of the little train is going to be on the sign. Anyhow, I just thought I'd keep you up on date. There's other things happening that, with the railroad, and so I just that's going to be a good thing for the not pedestrian, the drivers so that they'll be able to see this, but it's going to come next year about this time.
Need to go look at a Monopoly game and they'll find a good design. Councillor Arneson.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I guess through you to staff, when I read these reports, and I'm rather ill-informed about the whole scope of these projects, except to know that they're very expensive, and I'm wondering, we may have requested this already, but I wonder if we can have a future CPC meeting with a presentation or some kind of presentation outlining how these projects are going to impact us financially and how we're going to co-fund these. What opportunities do we have so that we're not negatively impacting our community going forward?
Back, and could that be part of the budget process? We'll be having a few CPC meetings regarding the budget. Maybe an update on this.
Your Worship, there'll likely be special meetings because of the time, so they could be dealt with at that point. The budget does contain, the capital budget contains a number of rail crossing initiatives that we're going forward with, or at least in some cases being mandated to deal with, so that will be being revisited in that context.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Councillor Qualley?
I wonder if on our next van tour, or if we could maybe create one, I'd be interested in just getting some context around all of these rail crossings, and maybe we could just sort of visit them on our way to and from, so we can sort of at least get an understanding of what's being planned in each place. For me, that would just provide a better level of context than a map. But again, if there's just a map available, I'll manage. But I think it would be useful to have somebody with some expertise in that, because this is a big undertaking. So it would be helpful to have some context. I did have a chance at UBCM to speak to the gentleman who's on this committee. His name is Mike, thank you. And he said, when I spoke to him about that idea, he said he'd be able to lead the tour, so or at least participate in the tour. So maybe there's a way we can engage Mike in that kind of information and have a better context of the thing, and maybe they can even pay for it.
Buy us lunch.
Buy us lunch. Oh, I'll make lunch.
So, Mr. Backen, if you can take that and then perhaps work on something. Thank you. Okay, I see no further discussion on I-1, so I'm going to call the question. It carries unanimously, and so now we'll go to Councillor Whitmarsh. Oops, Councillor Whitmarsh with the notice of motion. Let me get Whitmarsh. There we go. Councillor Whitmarsh, you're on.
Thank you, and thanks for the staff of Gateway of Hope. We were here waiting to the last minutes of a long meeting for this. And just before I go through the motion, just for council's information, did speak to staff, and in terms of the budget for this, there is a budget available in the 2017 council contingency, and so that's where it would come from. I'll just read the whereases here. Whereas homelessness in the township of Langley and across the region is continuing to grow and responsibilities becoming more localized. Whereas the Township of Langley has provided an annual grant to the Gateway of Hope as the primary contribution to the issue of homelessness in the Township of Langley, and whereas the loss of gaming in the Township of Langley has led to the loss of funding for the Gateway of Hope and will result in a negative budget balance in excess of $100,000 for the current fiscal year. Therefore, be it resolved that the Township of Langley provide the Gateway of Hope with a grant of $100,000 in the 2017 budget year, and further, be it resolved that the Gateway of Hope's request for annual funding of $100,000 remain as part of the 2018 budget process. I so move.
So maybe you could just add in your motion before I take a seconder that the Gateway of Hope with a grant of $100,000 to come from council contingency in the 2017 budget year. Would that be acceptable? Okay.
Acceptable, yes.
Okay, so seconder, Councillor Arneson. Discussion, Councillor Fox.
Yeah, thank you. Obviously, we made a long-term commitment in the Gateway of Hope. Certainly, I think, needs to have our support. We lost those machines, and I think the licenses went to the city of Langley casino. Is that correct?
Yes.
So,
as I understand, yeah.
My first question is, why doesn't the Gateway casino in the city of Langley, it's Gateway, it's the same name there starting, why doesn't the Gateway casino in the city of Langley up their ante for $100,000, seeing as they took our machinery? I think, we were very careful to say that any money we raised it was never a policy, it was a philosophy, that any money raised through gaming would go directly to a social conscience. And that was the Gateway of Hope. And I think it worked very effectively. It was a good message out to our community that we weren't living off the proceeds of the casino or anything, our gaming machinery, bingo hall, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm just wondering, number one, where that message could go. You took our machines, you pay our bill. I guess that's a real kind of basic way of saying it. And before you answer that, Mr. Backen or whoever, the second thing is there any hope of us getting those machines back in some other form, location, or whatever, where we could go back to actually providing legitimately the funds through our own, within our own jurisdiction?
Mr. Backen?
Thank you, Your Worship. It's probably helpful to recall that while the money was being designated from the slot machines that were at the former Bingo Palace, it was actually being done by the province through the gaming industry or through the gaming ministry. So the result of that is it really isn't that it's the gateway, any gateway entity that's doing it. It's actually the municipal share. So to achieve the result that's being suggested, it really would be to request the City of Langley to allocate $100,000 from their annual revenue towards the Gateway of Hope. That would be the appropriate process to do it, because it's really the municipal portion that's being reallocated. And secondly, in terms of the going forward, if there were to be additional machines or new machines in an additional location or another location in the township, then it would be appropriate to reinstate the philosophy that was in place. At this point, there is only some theoretical discussions of a relocation of the existing community gaming facility, but nothing concrete.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Richter?
Yes, a question for the mover of the motion. Is this intended to be 2 years bridge funding and that's it? Or is this intended to be ongoing ad infinitum?
Okay. Mr. Whitmarsh is the next speaker, so that's your. I'll put him
Okay.
on if you're finished. Councillor. Oh, sorry. I thought Councillor Richter. If you want to finish, then he'll address your question.
I'd
when
actually
he's
like
on.
to move division. I can support the first part of it because I think that the Gateway of Hope was caught in a decision that they weren't aware of this year, and it's had a negative impact on them. But I'm very concerned about this being ongoing funding. You know, of every tax dollar that comes out of people's pockets, 4 cents comes to us. The rest goes to the federal government and the provincial government. And the provincial government has quite a healthy little surplus right now. And the provincial government is responsible for social, the Ministry of Housing, and also for social services. And I think it's really unfair that they take a revenue stream away from us that we didn't keep for ourselves, that we pass that revenue stream on to a very good organization in the community. And they take it away, and then they say, and you can continue to try to get money then out of the township. Well, that's not our job to provide social housing nor social services. That's the provincial government's job. And unless we have a dedicated revenue stream that we can turn over like we did in this case, then what's really being asked for is an increase of taxes in order to support programs that are already being taxed for at other levels of government. So as I say, I can support them for this year bridge funding because I think they were caught in an unfair position, but I don't think this should be ongoing unless we get a revenue stream back from the provincial government that we can dedicate to them. And if Councillor Fox's suggestion about us getting more slots back in the township works, then I think we should go for that. But if we give it to them this year, that'll give them some comfort going forward. But as I say, I hope the Councillor Whitmarsh will answer when he gets the floor whether he intends this to be ongoing forever or if it's just a 2-year bridge scenario. And I would move division after I hear from him on that.
Oh, you want to hear from him first? Okay, Councillor Whitmarsh.
Yeah, thank you. I certainly can appreciate that Council previously made a decision to link funding for the Gateway of Hope to gaming revenue. And I certainly understand how that happened. I certainly can see why that might have been done. It feels to me that, this idea of having a social conscience, however, should not be only because we get gaming revenue. We should have a social conscience because we have a social conscience and because we care for our community and we care for those members of our community who are disadvantaged. And so I would like us in the future, and to answer the question as we go forward, to consider what do we do for the issues of homelessness in our community, whether or not we receive gaming revenue. Gaming revenue is a great source of revenue that certainly should, in my mind, be used to deal with those issues of social conscience. But I don't think that whether we have a social conscience should be tied to whether or not we have gaming or gambling in our community. That seems backwards to me. We should consider our responsibility as a township to do what we can for the issue of homelessness. And right now, the primary thing that we do is provide funding to the Gateway of Hope. And so I am suggesting in this motion that we would provide it for this year because there was a sudden loss of funding, but that we would move the discussion to future years from 2018 and beyond. This particular motion says annual funding as part of the 2018 process, but I see it as a commitment for a longer period of time. Previously, and maybe it was a month ago, the members of the Gateway of Hope here presented to us and asked us and made a request to continue funding for 5 years at $100,000 a year. And that's the kind of request that I'd like to bring forward to the 2018 budget process. I don't think that we should link, as we move forward, our help to the homelessness community to gaming. I think we can use the gaming funding if we get any returns, that's great, but I do think we have an obligation and a social conscience of ourselves here on council to do that. And often, one of the ways you measure a community and the strength of a community is how they treat their most disadvantaged. And I think we need to stand up and make a statement that $100,000 a year annually towards the Gateway of Hope is the least that we should be doing. And so I would think of this as moving on forward, and I would prefer that it's not in division, and we not divide these two motions, but if that's the will of council, we obviously will. Thank you.
Thank you. So suggestion could be to divide, certainly take that motion, or perhaps it could say, be it resolved that the Gateway of Hope's request for annual funding be referred, or $100,000 be referred to the 2018 budget process.
Please speak first.
Sure. No, I'm just, well, there was a motion to divide. Some. Okay, sure. I haven't heard the motion to divide yet, so go right ahead. I was making a suggestion on a way to work our way through this. Thank you. Councillor Arneson is next.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I'm very much in support of Councillor Whitmarsh's position. I feel, and I don't want to get into the issue of where we're getting the money from, but I would just like to point out to Council, as we're aware, the Gateway of Hope is the current service provider that we have for both the Langleys. We don't currently have one in the Township of Langley. And quid pro quo, I think it is up to us to fulfill an obligation of a social need that we have. We're more and more aware that we're spending ourselves larger and larger amounts of money on managing homelessness without actually providing any real services for them beyond, what we have here, which is basically, let's be frank, moving them around. So I think that in light of that, we have more and more homeless people. They're very vulnerable individuals, many of them who come from our community. We have seniors and young people, and now that we're looking more closely at these numbers, these people actually do live in our community. And so I think we do, under the circumstances, owe an obligation to do our best to try and help them. So I'm supportive of the fact that, especially in this transitional period, most particularly, that to deprive the Gateway of Hope money at this time would be an extreme hardship. And if anything is to be done about looking at what the longer term prospects are, the only thing I have come up with myself is that if the Township of Langley has committed our own personal resources then to our own homelessness shelter, then I would reconsider shifting some funding away from the Gateway of Hope, but for the purpose of putting it towards our own homeless housing operation. So I think at the very least, I would like to, if council is not amenable to having this as a budget item for 5 years, that we at the very least have it as a place marker so that we can, based on our circumstances, and maybe, maybe it might be the case we decide to give more. That's a possibility. So I don't really know. I can't prejudge our budget, but there could be circumstances. We have a social planner now. Maybe there are some things that we could do to, to try and work around this. But I definitely support this at the very least.
Councillor Long?
Well, I'm just going to give you some history here because we committed to put $1 million towards the project, towards the initiative, and that was a number of years ago. I'm not sure when that starting date was, and it was fairly convenient, I must say, at that time to say, oh, well, we'll take we'll send it every year in this gaming revenue, which would be one way to offset it. But the commitment was made for $1 million, and I guess we are delinquent now in X amount of dollars. So that's the first thing I'd like to point out. Where we go beyond that $1 million, I think that's a discussion that we started to touch on right now. So my suggestion, Your Worship, might be, first of all, how much is in the contingency fund? Because first of all, this motion is saying take $100,000 out of it. So hopefully we've got it there.
123,000, I believe, Mr.
Approximately
Marshall?
122,000.
And that needs to hold us over till May, right?
Till end of December, isn't it?
Okay, so we can afford that, and I think that's terrific, and that's really the first part of the motion. So I can wholeheartedly support that. In partnership with the fact that we had committed $1 million and we haven't been able to come up with the money. Now, coming from gaming, that's a whole other issue. Perhaps we can find out what is the number then we are delinquent on the million, if we're short on the million, 800 and something thousand?
Your Worship, it's a bit more complicated as it was up to $1 million and up to $100,000 per year for a period of 10 years. The years effectively expired before we met the amount because the machines were moved out. I would think as a ballpark, we're probably short by about $200,000.
So I was going to suggest that we do the 100,000 now, which we're all in agreement with, and perhaps we do, in the 2018 budget, we refer the fact that we owe the rest of that million and then decide after that where it goes. So I think what you were saying, Your Worship, was to refer the last part to the budget process where we can have a more intelligent conversation about it.
Suggestion.
Rather than splitting the motion. Perhaps, I don't want to be cheeky and throw a motion now when I said not to before.
I'll wait.
But that might be one way we could do it, is to refer the last part to the budget process, but certainly give the $100,000 now.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Qualley?
Thank you. I appreciate your passion on this issue, Councillor Whitmarsh, and I would, be supportive of the grant this year. But I'd really like to have a better understanding of where the Gateway is at in terms of needs assessment and sort of what our ability is to continue with the funding going forward. So I'd like to understand how the $100,000 used, because it's a lot of money. So perhaps I'll support the motion, and we'll support it being part of the budget process, which means we'll evaluate it at budget time. But in the meantime, perhaps at CPC or prior to budget conversations for 2018, the folks from Gateway could come to us and let us know how this money's used and what you actually need, and is it 120 or is it 80,000? I mean, I'm assuming it's not less than you're asking for now, but I'd just like to have a better understanding of where this money's used and the impact that it actually has on our community.
Okay, thank you.
So can that be a referral?
I think we can certainly have a motion after this is all done to ask the Gateway to come and do a presentation to council at a future council meeting. Councillor Richter?
Okay, I like the wording you suggested, Mr. Mayor, so if we can amend the bottom referral to read, be it resolved that the Gateway of Hope's request for annual funding of $100,000 be referred to the 2018 budget process. I won't ask for division if you want to do that. I'll move that.
Thank you. It's moved by Councillor Richter and second by Councillor Long.
Okay.
So
now, I did want to speak to that. And I just want to clarify Councillor Long's memory. It was up to $1 million. We never guaranteed $1 million. We always said we would give them what we got, up to $1 million. and we didn't quite get $1 million out of them, obviously. And in terms of gaming revenue that Councillor Whitmarsh has referred to, my point is that the provincial government took away a revenue stream from us. If they want us to be able to fully help the homeless in this community, they need to give us other revenue streams. Doesn't have to be gaming money, but allow us to come up with other ways to collect money that we can put into these social initiatives. Otherwise, it's really not our job to be doing it. It's not fair to the property taxpayer. It really isn't.
Thank you. Councillor Whitmarsh on the amendment.
Yeah, so I can't seem to find it here, but my recollection was that we've actually already passed as this council that the request from the Gateway of Hope, the request they made on the October 2nd meeting, that was moved and passed to go to the 2018 budget process. It seems like we've already done that. And so the reason it was put in this motion was, I guess, maybe it added confusion. It was to try and take away the confusion so that this year, what I'm talking about here is that we need to have the funding for 2017, but that I'm not asking for it to be taken away from the 2018 process, which has already been approved. We don't need to actually redo it. We just did it 2 weeks ago. We passed at this council that it would already go to the 2018 budget process. So this is nothing new. This is just confirming that we want to keep doing that.
Okay. Thank you. Any further discussion on the amendment? I'm going to call a question on the amendment. It's on the amendment to refer to the... Okay, the amendment carries. The Councillor Whitmarsh opposed. So the motion as amended is now on the floor. Any further discussion on that? I'd just like to say, I think certainly, I think this is important. In my mind, there was a commitment, and for something completely out of our control, the funding source that was identified for that commitment was taken away from us. I don't like to make my decisions based on what the city does or doesn't do. They make decisions that totally I can't understand sometimes, and for me to ask them to provide money to this, I think is a waste of time. I think we have to do what's important for our community. We already are funding homelessness by sending our bylaw officers out twice a week to work with these people and find solutions for them and clean the parks up. That's costing us money already. If there's a way that we can reduce that cost by being proactive and helping the one shelter that is in our community, I think that's a good thing. We already are doing a lot of social work. We just had a great presentation from libraries. Libraries are providing some great amenities and great programming for our residents. Parks and recreation, lots of programming there. Public art, something else that we find ourselves doing. So $100,000 is certainly a lot of money, but in the scheme of things with the issue that is in front of us, I'm quite happy to support this for this 2017. And I do like to see a further discussion in the 18 budget process. I appreciate Councillor Whitmarsh's comments that he wanted to have some assurance on it, but I do believe that we have a process to go through, and there's a bigger discussion on how much further, how many more years we're going to be looking at this. So I am supportive of this. I think it's good. It's unfortunate that a lot of this has been downloaded to municipalities, but the problem is right outside the door, and we need to be part of the solution and certainly help out this very important service in our community. So with that, I'll call the question. That carries unanimously. Is there any other business? Seeing none, a motion to terminate. Oh, Councillor Fox moves termination.
Second it.
Councillor Davis seconds it. You're a little slow on the mark there, Councillor Davis. I think your cold is affecting you. All those in favour? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.